Welcome to our fun little study group for KP 5361 Theory and Management of Public Service Organizations. These are the readings from the required text, Managing Human Behavior in Public and Nonprofit Organizations, Chapter 8.
It's good to be back. And wow, we have a monster of a topic today. We are breaking down Chapter 8.
We certainly are. And I have to be honest with you, and I'm guessing I'm speaking for a lot of people here. When I saw the title for this week's reading, I kind of physically recoiled. I actually flinched.
Oh, really? What was it about the title that triggered that response?
It's just the words, power and organizational politics. It just brings up this visceral reaction. I have so many friends working in government or nonprofits, and all they ever say is, I just want to do my work. I just want to help people. I hate all the politics. It feels slimy, dirty.
You've just hit the nail on the head. In fact, the authors of the text, they totally anticipated that exact reaction. They opened the whole chapter with this premise that really frames the entire discussion.
Hey.
That power is, and I'm quoting here, America's last dirty word.
It really is, isn't it? Like it's this radioactive thing we're not supposed to touch.
Exactly. They quote Rosa Bismarck Cantor, who is just a giant in this field. And she made this observation that always sticks with me. She said, it is easier to talk about money and much easier to talk about sex than it is to talk about power.
Wow. When you actually start and think about that, that is wild. I mean, think about The Office. You might hear people gossiping or maybe complaining about their paycheck.
Sure.
But you never, ever hear someone say, hey, I'm currently executing a strategic maneuver to acquire more influence over the budget committee.
Yeah, if they did, you'd probably back away from them very slowly. We treat the active pursuit of power as something almost villainous.
Right.
But here's the counterpoint. And this is kind of the bitter pill the chapter makes us swallow right at the start. They bring in Jeffrey Pfeffer, another heavyweight. And his take is just so blunt. He says, without power, you are impotent, irrespective of your talents or the righteousness of your cause.
Oof. Impotent. That is a heavy word.
It's meant to be.
So let's play that out. You're saying I could be the most brilliant policy analyst in the entire department. I could have a plan that would literally save millions of dollars and improve services for thousands of people. But if I don't have power...
Then your brilliant plan is just a PDF sitting on a server somewhere.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just an idea.
In the context of public service, you have to reframe it. Power isn't about ego. It's brevity. It's like physics.
Yeah.
It is the energy required to overcome inertia.
Huh. The energy to overcome inertia.
Yeah, nothing moves. No policy gets changed, no funding is allocated, no new program gets launched without some kind of force being applied. That force is power.
So we're kind of stuck in this paradox then. On the one hand, we absolutely need power to do the very job we were hired for. But on the other, we're culturally programmed to see anyone who actively tries to get it as some kind of, a Machiavellian snake. It is a profound ambivalence, a total love-hate relationship.
Okay.
We despise the idea of the politician, but we're also terrified of being a victim. I mean, nobody wants to be that manager who can't protect their team from budget cuts because they didn't have the political capital to fight back.
No, that's the worst feeling. And the text, it actually puts numbers to this sort of the schizophrenia. They cited a survey by Gans and Murray that I found fascinating.
Oh, the one about workplace politics.
Yeah. So 93.2% of people agreed that, yes, politics exist in most organizations. Okay, obvious. And 89% agreed that executives have to be good politicians to succeed.
So we all get it. It's there, and it's necessary for the people at the top.
But then, in the very same survey, 55.1% of those same people said they believe politics are detrimental to efficiency. So it's basically, we know you have to do it, but we also think it's breaking the whole system.
That's the paradox we have to navigate today. And if we have one mission for this deep dive, it's this. We need to help you, the listener, move from that mindset of politics is bad, so I'm just going to ignore it, to realizing that political awareness is absolutely necessary for public service survival.
Because ignoring it doesn't make it go away.
No, it just makes you a casualty.
Okay, consider me intrigued and maybe a little terrified. To really understand this thing, I feel like we have to look at where it comes from. The chapter takes us on this little history trip, starting with the OG of dirty politics.
Yes, Niccolo Machiavelli.
The man himself.
The prince. written way back in the 16th century, and yet it feels like it still haunts every single boardroom and city council chamber today.
It really does. Even if you've never actually read the book, you know the vibe, right? The end justifies the means.
It's better to be feared than loved.
Exactly. It's basically the instruction manual for every movie villain.
It is, but we do have to remember the context. Machiavelli wasn't writing a leadership guide for a modern, democratic nonprofit. He was writing a survival manual for the brutal, warring city-states of Renaissance Italy.
Fair enough.
His view of human nature was, let's just say, incredibly low. He wrote that people are generally ungrateful, fickle, and deceitful.
What a charmer.
Well, if that's your starting point, if you genuinely believe everyone around you is just a liar waiting to stab you in the back, then your strategy has to be ruthlessness. You have to strike first.
And the text argues we haven't really shaken that off. We still use the word Machiavellian to describe that one coworker, the one. The person who's all smiles to your face and then immediately takes credit for your work in the big meeting.
We do, and for good reason. I mean, those people exist. But Machiavelli did introduce a concept that's actually value neutral, and it's crucial for us. He showed that power is a function of dependency. He stripped away all the old ideas about power being God's will or fate. He showed it was a mechanism. It was a strategy.
So he kind of turned it into a science, even if his ethics were, let's say, questionable.
Right.
Then we jump forward a few centuries to someone who tried to, I guess, clean up the mess. Max Weber. We've talked about him before, the father of bureaucracy.
Right. So Weber looked at the history of power, and all he saw was chaos.
Yeah.
So he tried to categorize it. He said there are 3 types of authority. First, there's charismatic authority.
The cult of personality.
Exactly. You follow the leader because they're magnetic or heroic or maybe just terrifying. The revolutionary, the startup founder who runs the whole company on vibes.
Okay. What's number 2?
Traditional authority. Think kings and queens.
Ah.
I'm in charge because my father was in charge and his father before him.
Which is great if you're in the royal family, but probably not the best way to run the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Precisely. Weber saw both of those as unstable. What happens when the charismatic leader dies?
Chaos.
Right. So he championed the 3rd type, legal rational authority.
This is the rule of law.
It's the rule of the office, the position. You don't obey me because I'm charming or because my name is on the building. You obey me because I hold the title of director, and the written regulations say the director gets to make this decision.
In theory, that sounds fantastic. It depersonalizes power. It's supposed to be fair. It doesn't matter if the boss likes you personally. It just matters if you followed the procedure.
That was the dream. But Weber was, well, he was smart enough to see the nightmare that could come from it. He predicted that this legal rational system would eventually harden into what he called an iron cage.
The iron cage, that is such a vivid image. It feels like he basically predicted the modern frustration with government.
He really did. The cage is what happens when the rules become more important than the actual goal. We get so trapped in the hierarchy, the forms, the procedures, the rationality of it all, that we lose our humanity. We lose our flexibility. We become, in his words, specialists without spirit.
Wow. Which brings us to the more modern era. Starting around the 60s, we started to realize, hey, maybe treating people like cogs in an iron cage isn't actually the best way to get things done.
Enter the human relations movement. This was the big shift where we started to acknowledge that employees have, psychological needs. You can't just command them. You have to motivate them.
And the text brings up Bertrand Russell here, who offers a distinction that I think really saves us from that whole Machiavellian trap. He distinguished between power as a means and power as an end.
This is such a critical ethical anchor, especially for anyone in public service. If you are accumulating power, building your networks, gaining influence as a means to achieve a public good, like better schools or cleaner water, well, that's virtuous.
But if you're just doing it so you can have the biggest office and make everyone nervous when you walk by,
then it's power as an end in itself. That's when it turns toxic. It's a really simple test, but it's a powerful one to ask yourself.
Now, before we get into the real nuts and bolts of how to get power, we have to talk about culture. Because power just doesn't look the same in, say, New York as it does in Kuala Lumpur. The text references Hofstede's work on power distance. Can you break that down?
Yeah, this is absolutely critical, especially if you're working in a diverse organization, which most of us are. Power distance is basically a measurement of how much the, let's say, lower people in a hierarchy accept the power is distributed unequally.
So is it, I expect my boss to be a god, or is it, I expect my boss to be more like a peer?
Pretty much. In low-power distance cultures, think the USA, Scandinavia, Australia, Israel power is demystified. Subordinates expect to be consulted. It's culturally acceptable. It's even encouraged to walk into the boss's office and say, hey, I think you're wrong about this data.
Which is pretty much every American workplace I've ever been in. If the boss starts acting like a king, we tend to revolt.
But in high-power distance cultures, like Malaysia, Russia, Mexico, many Arab nations, the hierarchy is steep and it is respected. The boss is the boss. To question them openly isn't seen as giving feedback. It's a grave insult to their status.
So you can just imagine the friction there. You get an American manager who says, my door's always open, come challenge my ideas. And they have an employee from a high-powered distance background who's thinking, why is this weak leader asking me to do their job for them?
Or the reverse. A manager from a high-powered distance culture comes into a U.S. agency and starts issuing commands without any explanation. The American staff immediately labels them a tyrant. It's a recipe for conflict.
And then you can layer on top of that the whole individualist versus collectivist divide.
Right. So in a place like the U.S., which the text calls vertical individualist, we tend to use power for self-promotion. I led this initiative. I got this done. In horizontal collectivist cultures, power is for the group. If you stand up and say, I did this, you look like a monster. It's always, we did this.
It really goes to show you can't play the game if you don't even know which board you're playing on.
Context is everything.
Okay, so let's get into the tooltip. Let's say I'm listening, and I've accepted that I need power to do my job. I want to be a virtuous public servant, but I need some juice. Where do I get it? The text lays out French and Raven's classic 5 bases of social power.
This framework is a classic for a reason. It's so useful. Every manager should have this tattooed on their forearm.
Let's run through them. But let's use a specific example. Let's say I'm a mid-level manager at a city housing agency, and I'm trying to launch a new program to speed up building inspections.
Great scenario. Let's do it.
Okay, base number 1, legitimate power.
This is your job title. Simple as that. You are the manager of inspections. You have the right on paper to assign tasks because the org chart says you do.
But is that enough?
Almost never. Gets you compliance. People will do the bare minimum because they have to, so they don't get fired, but it doesn't get you commitment. If you're only ever relying on because I said so, you are a weak leader. Full stop.
Okay, so I need more. Base number 2, reward power.
This is the ability to give people things they want. Now, in the private sector, this is obvious, right? It's bonuses, stock options. In your city housing agency, you probably can't just hand out wads of cash.
Right. The pay scale is totally fixed by the union contract. So does that mean I have no reward power?
Not at all. You have plenty if you're creative. Reward power is praise. It's public recognition. It's desirable assignments. It's saying, hey, you did a great job on that report, so I'm going to send you to that conference in San Diego next month.
Oh, that's huge. That stuff is currency.
It's massive currency. And here's the key. Using reward power effectively actually helps build your referent power, which we'll get to in a minute.
Okay, but first, the flip side, base number 3, coercive power, the stick.
The ability to punish. The threat of firing someone, writing them up, demoting them.
But again, in a government job, firing someone can take like 6 months of paperwork.
That's true. But coercive power can be much more subtle. It can be the silent treatment. It can be withholding key information. It can be over-supervising. Micromanaging someone so hard that they just become miserable and quit.
The manage them out strategy.
Exactly. But be warned. The text is crystal clear on this. Coercive power creates resistance. It destroys trust. Every time you use it, you burn your political capital. You might win that one battle, but you will lose the war because everyone will hate you.
Which leads us perfectly to base number 4. Referent power.
This is the holy grail.
Oh.
This is power based on identification and liking. People follow you simply because they like you. They admire you. They want to be on your team.
So is this just being the popular kid?
It's deeper than just popularity. It's really about respect. If you're fair, if you're supportive, if you advocate for your team and have their backs, you build referent power. And when you ask them to work late to fix that inspection backlog, they do it. Not because they fear you, but because they don't want to let you down.
That is really powerful. Okay, and finally, number 5, expert power.
Knowledge, skill. In our knowledge economy, this is the great equalizer.
What do you mean by that, the great equalizer?
Well, let's go back to your housing agency. Imagine there's a 24-year-old analyst on your team who's the only person in the entire agency who knows how to write the code for the new inspection database.
Yeah. What?
The director doesn't know how. You don't know how. That 24-year-old in that moment has immense expert power.
Because we are completely dependent on them.
100%. You can be at the very bottom of the org chart, but have very high power if you hold the keys to critical information. The text gives great advice here. Do your homework. If you know the budget regulations better than anyone else in the room, you run the room, period.
I love that. It's the one type of power you can generate entirely on your own. You don't need someone to promote you. You just need to read the manual.
And Cotter added a few footnotes to this list as well. He talked about doing favors to create a sense of obligation. The idea that politics is often a trade. I helped you with your budget crisis, so you'll support my request for a new hire.
Which sounds a little transactional, but I mean, that's kind of how the world works, isn't it?
It's the grease in the gears. It's what makes things move.
So we know where power comes from. Now I want to shift to how we see it, because the text gets into this really heady concept that it calls the three faces of power. And I have to be honest, the third one kind of freaked me out.
It is a bit mind-bending. This comes from the work of a sociologist named Stephen Lukes. It's a way of analyzing how power actually shows up when there's a conflict.
Okay, let's break them down. The first face seems like the most obvious one.
It is. It's direct conflict. It's overt. You want X, I want Y. We have an argument in a meeting. I have more resources or more votes or more authority, so I win. You lose. It's all out in the open.
Simple. I want to paint the office blue, you want beige, you're the boss, so we end up painting it beige.
That's the first face. It's visible, it's measurable. But the second face is a lot sneakier. This is what's called exclusionary power. It's all about controlling the agenda.
The text calls this non-decision making.
Right. Let's say you have a proposal to switch your department to a 4-day work week. You know the director hates the idea. If the director uses the first face of power, he lets you bring it up in the meeting, and then he just votes.
No. Okay. But if he uses the second face...
He makes sure the topic never even makes it onto the meeting agenda in the first place. He buries it in a subcommittee. He says, oh, we ran out of time today. The vote never happens. You still lose, but you never even got a chance to fight.
That is incredibly frustrating. It's like a pocket veto.
And it is incredibly effective. If you control the agenda, you control the outcome. But then there is the third face.
The inception face, as I'm calling it?
A good name for it. The third face is about shaping desires. It's the ability to convince other people that what you want is actually what they want.
Okay, now we're getting really psychological.
Lukes argues that true ultimate power isn't just winning arguments. It's preventing arguments from ever even happening because everyone already thinks they agree with you.
Can you give me a positive example of that? Because it sounds kind of insidious.
Sure. Think of a really visionary leader in a nonprofit. They convinced the staff that working long hours for relatively low pay isn't exploitation, it's a noble sacrifice for the cause. The staff wants to work late because they genuinely believe in the mission. The leader has successfully aligned their desires with the organization's goals.
Okay, but the dark side.
The dark side is manipulation. It's a company convincing its employees that forming a union is actually bad for them, even when all the data says otherwise. It's convincing an employee not to take a better job for their own good.
That's the scary part. It makes you question your own mind. You start thinking, do I actually want this promotion, or have I just been socialized by my organization to want it?
And that is the really provocative question the third face forces us to ask. It makes us look at how ideology and culture shape what we think of as our own choices. And if you're a public servant, you have to be really careful. Are you inspiring people, shaping their desires in a positive way, or are you just brainwashing them? The line is a lot thinner than we like to admit.
That is deep. I'm going to need a minute to process my entire life. But while I do that, let's talk about how the organization itself shapes all this. We've been focused on individuals, but the structure really matters, doesn't it?
You cannot ignore the structure. This brings us right back to Rosabeth Moss Kanter. She did this groundbreaking work on how a person's position in a structure determines their behavior.
And she talked about tokenism.
Yes. She studied women in corporate environments back in the 70s. The common wisdom at the time was, oh, women in management are too controlling, they're too rigid, they can't delegate. It was all blamed on personality or on gender.
And Kanter came along and said, hold on a minute, just look at the math here.
Exactly. She said these women were often tokens. They were the only woman in the room. And when you're a token, You are under a microscope.
Right.
You're not seen as an individual. You represent your entire group. If you make a mistake, it's not Jane made a mistake. It's, see, women can't handle this.
That is an immense amount of pressure.
It leads to a feeling of powerlessness. And here's the key insight. People who feel powerless tend to become controlling.
Yeah.
They hoard information, they micromanage, they cling to the rules because it's the only safety they have. Cantor proved that if you put a man in that exact same Kochen position with low structural power, he acts the exact same way.
So the bossy woman stereotype wasn't a gender trait at all. It was a symptom of structural powerlessness.
Precisely. The solution isn't to fix the women. The solution is to change the structure. Stop having Kochens, create a critical mass, give people real power, real opportunity, and they stop acting so rigid.
This connects directly to the bigger conversation around privilege and identity. The text talks about these webs of institutionalized inequities.
And if you're a manager today, you have to see this. Power just flows more easily to some people than to others, based on their race, their gender, their class, their ability. The first face of power is easier to win if you happen to look like the people who are already in charge.
Right.
And the third phase, shaping desires, often works by convincing marginalized groups that they belong at the bottom.
So political awareness isn't just about getting your budget approved. It's about recognizing these invisible headwinds that your staff might be facing every single day.
Yes. You can't truly empower people if you don't first understand the structural weights that might be holding them down.
Speaking of weights, let's say I'm listening to this and I'm having a realization, wow, I am the one with no power. I'm the token, or I'm low on the totem pole and my boss is a tyrant. How do I defend myself? Is there a defense against the dark arts class for this?
There is. And it all comes down to a very simple equation. Let's call it the power equation.
Okay, hit me with the math.
PED, power equals dependence.
Okay, go.
I only have power over you if you need something that I have. That is the definition of dependence. So if you want to balance the power, you have to change the dependency equation.
The text outlines 4 strategies for this. Let's role play it. I'm a staffer. You're my tyrannical boss who controls my performance review. I feel powerless. What's my first move?
Strategy 1, decrease your needs. You have to look at what the boss controls. Let's say it's your need for validation, praise, or maybe the promise of a promotion. You have to decide, psychologically, I don't actually need
So
that.
I have to emotionally detach. Basically say, I am here for the paycheck. Your opinion of me does not define my self-worth.
Precisely. It sounds philosophical, but it is a tactical power move.
Yeah.
The moment you stop craving their approval, their biggest lever of power over you just snaps. You become unbelievable.
I like that. Stoicism as a weapon. Okay, strategy 2. Increase your alternatives.
This is the classic BTNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. If this job is the only way you can pay your mortgage, then you are 100% dependent on your boss. You have zero power.
So I need to start freshening up my resume.
You do. Even if you never leave, just knowing that you could get another job at the nonprofit down the street changes your body language. It changes how you negotiate for resources.
Yeah.
It's the power of having an exit strategy.
Okay, strategy 3. Increase their need for you. This is turning the tables.
Right. Make yourself indispensable. We talked about this with expert power. If you become the only person who understands the history of the grant compliance, and if you leave, the whole department might collapse.
Then my boss might hate my guts, but they can't touch me because they need me to keep the lights on.
Correct. You've just increased their dependence on you.
And finally, strategy 4. Decrease their alternative.
This is the more aggressive version of strategy 3. You actively work to prevent the boss from finding a replacement for you. You don't document your process as well. You keep all the critical knowledge in your head.
Whoa, that sounds pretty risky.
It is. It's not exactly good organizational citizen behavior, but in a survival situation, people do it all the time. It's the, if you fire me, good luck figuring out the password to the server move.
The text makes a really important point about all this, though. Perception matters more than reality.
Yes. This is so key. If you think you're powerless, you will act submissively. You'll look at the floor. You'll apologize for things that aren't your fault. And that signals to the other person that they have all the power.
But if you shift your perception...
If you realize, wait a minute, I have alternatives, they need my expertise, you stand up taller, you speak more firmly.
Yeah.
And often that confidence alone is enough to shift the entire dynamic.
It's like fake it till you make it, but for power dynamics.
It really works.
So we've covered a lot. But there's still this nagging question, is all of this? Is it good? We've learned how to fight, how to manipulate agendas, how to psychologically detach. Is this really what public service is supposed to be? The text presents this as the great debate.
The dark side versus the bright side of politics.
And the dark side is pretty obvious. Milgram and Roberts argue that politics is just a massive waste of time.
And they're not wrong. Think about what I call rent-seeking behavior. If I spend 20 hours a week lobbying the director to give my department a bigger piece of the budget, that is 20 hours I am not spending actually serving the public.
It creates this zero-sum game. I win, you lose, and the public gets nothing. Plus, there's the stress, the anxiety, the turnover it causes.
Exactly. But we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a bright side. Pfeffer and Solancic argue that politics is simply the mechanism for resolving conflict when goals disagree.
And in government and nonprofits, goals always disagree.
Always. The Environmental Protection Agency wants to stop pollution. The Department of Commerce wants to grow industry. Those are legitimate but conflicting goals. You can't just put that into a calculator and get an objective answer. You have to negotiate. You have to argue. You have to use politics to find a compromise.
So politics isn't some distortion of the system. It is the system for making decisions.
It is. And then you have what's called strategic contingency theory. This suggests that power naturally flows to the people who can solve the organization's biggest problems at any given moment. And that's actually a healthy thing.
How does that work in practice?
Well, imagine an organization is facing a massive budget crisis. Who suddenly becomes the most powerful person in the room?
The accountants, the CFO.
Right, because they have the expertise to solve the critical contingency. But if the organization's biggest problem is a huge PR scandal,
then the communications director is suddenly the most powerful person in the room.
Exactly. Power shifts to where it's needed most. That's adaptive. It helps the organization survive.
And then there's the concept of organizational learning. Lawrence and his colleagues argue you can't actually learn or improve as an organization without using power.
This is the real how to get things done part. They break it down into 3 steps: interpreting, integrating, and institutionalizing.
Break those down for me.
Okay, interpreting. You have a new idea. You have to use influence to frame the problem and convince people your idea is the right solution. That's a power move.
Right, and integrating.
You have to force that idea into the actual workflow. You have to get people to change their old habits. That takes force. That takes power.
And finally, institutionalizing.
You have to make the change permanent.
Yeah.
You have to rewrite the rules, change the job descriptions. If you don't have the power to do that, your great idea just dies in the suggestion box.
So if I refuse to play politics, I'm essentially refusing to allow my organization to improve.
That's the harsh truth of it. Which brings us to the verdict. The goal isn't to avoid politics. It's to develop what the text calls positive political skill.
Positive political skill. That still sounds like an oxymoron to me.
It's not, though. Perry and his colleagues define it really nicely. It has 4 dimensions. First, social astutness. Basically, can you read the room? Do you know who the key players are?
Okay, emotional intelligence. Second,
interpersonal influence. Can you adapt your style? Can you be tough with a contractor in one meeting and then empathetic with a constituent in the next?
Third is networking ability.
Dig your well before you're thirsty. Build relationships across the entire agency before you need to ask for a favor.
And the fourth one is my favorite because it feels like the antidote to all those snake-in-the-glass fears. Sincerity.
This is absolutely crucial. You have to be, or at the very least, you have to appear authentic. If people sense you're just manipulating them, all your power evaporates. Trust is the ultimate currency. You can be politically skilled and still be a good, honest person.
And this leads us to the ultimate goal, right? Why do we even want this power? Ideally, it's to achieve empowerment.
And we use that word so much. I'm empowering my team. Usually it's a lie.
Yeah, usually it just means I'm dumping all my work on you. Good luck with that.
Right. But true empowerment is a psychological state. The text breaks it down into 4 dimensions, meaning competence, self-determination, and impact.
So does the work matter? Am I good at it? Do I have a choice in how I do it? And does it actually make a difference?
If you, as a manager, can create a space where your team answers yes to all 4 of those, they are empowered. Peter Block, in his book, The Empowered Manager, argues that to get there, managers have to shift their mindset from bureaucratic to entrepreneurial.
And he talks about viewing power as fixed-sum versus expandable. I think this is where so many bad managers get stuck.
Yes. The fixed-sum mindset is the pie theory. There's only so much power in this office. If I give some to you, that means I have less. So what do? They hoard it. They keep you weak to keep themselves strong.
Which is just miserable for everyone involved.
The expandable mindset, the entrepreneurial one, says, wait, if I give you power, if I empower you to go solve problems and you succeed, our whole department succeeds. We get a bigger budget. We get a better reputation. The whole pie gets bigger.
So empowering your team actually makes you more powerful, not less.
Exactly. But there is a huge catch. The real litmus test for empowerment is failure management.
What do you mean by that?
It's easy to say, I empower you when things are going great. But what happens when that empowered employee tries a new, innovative idea and it fails miserably?
If the boss comes down on them like a ton of bricks.
Then empowerment is dead, not just for that one employee, but for everyone else who was watching. They learn the real lesson. Initiative equals punishment. I'm going back to just following the rules and keeping my head down.
So you have to create a safe-to-fail environment if you actually want an empowered team.
You have to treat honest failure as a learning opportunity, not a crime. And that takes a very secure, a very powerful leader.
Okay, we are in the home stretch. We've done the history, the theory, the dark side, the bright side. I want to leave our study group with some really practical, rapid-fire advice. The text lists some ways of acting.
Let's hit them.
Number 1, make yourself visible.
You cannot just be competent in a closet. People need to know you are competent. If you solve a huge problem but nobody knows you did it, you get zero expert power from it. Send the update email, present your findings at the meeting, don't hide your light.
Number 2, clarify goals.
Ambiguity is the breeding ground for toxic politics. If nobody knows what the real goal is, everyone just fights for their own turf. But if you say the clear goal is to house 500 families this year, then every political maneuver can be judged against that metric. It focuses the energy.
Number 3, and I love that this actually made it into an academic text, is be nice.
It sounds like kindergarten advice, but it is deeply strategic. Kindness builds your referent power bank account. In a big bureaucracy, there is so much friction. Be the lubricant, not the sandpaper. People will want to help you simply because you're pleasant to work with.
Don't be the sandpaper. Words to live by. And finally, the public service ethic.
This has to be the North Star. This is what separates a public manager from a generic corporate climber. In public service, power must be legitimated by purpose.
You always have to ask the question, what are we trying to accomplish, and for whose benefit?
Right. And if the answer is, so I can get promoted, you are part of the problem. But if the answer is to serve the public interest, then you have a mandate. Use your political skills. Build your network. Control the agenda. Do what it takes to get that good thing done.
I think that's the perfect place to wrap this all up. We started with Machiavelli saying people are basically ungrateful and deceitful, and we ended with be nice and serve the public.
That is quite an arc, isn't it?
It really is. I think my biggest takeaway is that I need to stop looking at politics as some annoying obstacle to my work. Politics is the work. It's the very mechanism of getting the work implemented in the real world.
Well said.
So here's a final provocative thought for all of you to chew on before next week's class. Think back to that third phase of power, the really tricky one about shaping desires.
The inception phase.
Ask yourself, where is that happening in your life right now? Are your professional desires, that next promotion, that fancier title, that corner office, are they truly yours? Or were they subtly shaped by the very structure you're trying to climb?
Does the cage make you want to stay in the cage?
Exactly. Deep thoughts for the commute home. Thanks for joining our fun little study group. Good luck with the reading, and we will see you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.